Let's do it before Amy dies.
Yeah, you sound like crap.
I know!
Welcome to Maker's Hustle, the podcast about turning your passion into a profession. This is episode 31 for Monday, February 13th, 2017. I'm your host, Bill Lavolsi, and here are my co-hosts, Amy Davis-Roth. Hey, Amy.
Hey.
And Jeffrey Moore. Hey, Jeff.
Hey.
He just copies me now, like whatever I say.
Well, I'm
trying to
remember that. I'm trying to find out, what is a perfect, because it's very difficult to keep doing the same thing over and over and it not sounding redundant and weird.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find the perfect hey or hey or hey. So I'm testing out different things.
Okay, good.
Very cool. So before we get started, I want to take a moment to thank everyone on Patreon, but especially our top supporters, Luis Gonzalez and Ryan Ahoro. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, fellas.
Thanks, guys. You're the best. We couldn't do it without you, like, for real. So thank you.
It's true. If you would like to support the show, you can check us out at patreon.com/makershustle.
It's been a while since we've had a new Patreon supporter.
People don't love us anymore. It's sad.
Yeah. It's okay.
What? People love us. They love us so much that they have to write you hate mail about me.
That's true.
That's good. It's like a passion. We evoke passion in people, and that's what's important.
Very true.
So thank you.
I'm with that. All right.
Very true.
Send us mail.
What are you working on this week? Somebody go.
All right.
You
so
want me? Oh.
I'll go because mine's
so you
just short
gotta
and
pick
sweet.
Someone, or this happens every time.
Every time.
Seriously,
So
everything is my
sweet.
job.
It is. Everything is your job.
Bill,
It is.
Bill,
White man, deal with it.
Bill, I don't know if you noticed, but you're with a pothead and a lazy black guy.
Yeah, seriously.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
everything is your job.
You're the only one who has his stuff together.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you want us to do.
Seriously.
Like, our job is just to show up. So I forgot the question. I remember the question.
What are you doing this week?
So
it's like
what I've been up to.
the same question every week.
So mine's is short and sweet. That's why I wanted to go first. So
right.
I wanted to set a goal for myself because I feel like I was spending too much time on finishing the one program. Because if you remember, I started one program, one coding course, and then I found one that seemed to be a little bit lighter. And so I started that one halfway through, and I've been bouncing back and forth between the two, just trying to, refresh and make my skills a little better. So I was like, this is taking too long. I need to focus. So what I did was I focused in on one program and I was able to finish it. And I built a whole bunch of different types of websites and I learned a whole lot of cool skills that I've never used before. And now I feel a lot more confident in my ability to build websites. And now, since I finished that one, I'm going to start working on the other coding course this week. So that was the goal that I set for myself. I spent probably about 3 hours every day. And it's not even that it took that long. It's just I wanted to try out a bunch of different things as I was learning new skills. So I'm excited to say that I finished the General Assembly Dash programming course, and now I'm going back to the Flatiron School one.
Cool.
And I'm actually very interested in doing a full immersive program. I just need to figure out how to pay for it without getting another loan. So they have a community-based web program where you pay, I believe it's like $140 a month, and you don't have the same type of in-class experience, but it's a lot of the same curriculum, and it's way more curriculum. So the program I just finished was about 70 hours worth. This program is about 800 hours worth of curriculum. So, and that's for $149 a month, and you can do it on your own time. So I'm thinking about doing that, but I just want to finish up this Flatiron School one before I make that decision. So yeah, been working hard. My brain hurts. My eyes hurt. So that was my week.
Cool.
Cool stuff. Amy, how about you?
Well, I just completed a custom order for one of the guys in that group that you introduced me to, that I like to make stuff group.
Oh, cool.
I did a custom shift knob for Marcus Hoffman.
Oh, yeah.
So he does a lot of hot rod stuff, I guess, and He's very proud of his vibrating shift knob that he likes to tell people about, which is funny. But yeah, he asked me if I would do like a group thing with him and design like a disc that he can embed into the top of a shifter for, you know, a car. So I took his logo and I did that, and I made it a cool little disc, and I did it with an antique crackle glaze, because when I think of, you know, shifters, I think of old hot rods, and so I wanted to give it sort of an antique look. And I just sent him a picture of it, and he said he loved it. So I look forward to seeing what he's going to do with it. That's really cool. I love cars, so it's a cool little fun thing that I did.
Yeah, Marcus specifically, he runs a company called Bug Tech.
Yeah.
And he makes shifters for old Volkswagens. So
cool. Yeah. He's really funny, but I like him a lot. So
Bill,
I did that.
What's up?
What don't you know about the people in this group?
I know, he knows everything. That's what's so good about Bill, though. He's like, he brings people together. He's like the.
That's so
he's
funny.
Like the glue. He's like the peanut butter in our.
Like,
in our
I'm gonna
jelly
randomly
sandwiches.
go into the group and just pick a person's name and see if you could tell me who they are, what they do, what is their YouTube channel.
We can do Bill trivia later.
Yeah,
I'm actually doing a project with him, and like I don't even know half as much as Bill does.
Yeah, that's super funny. All right, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's all right. I could talk forever, and you know me. So what else am I working on? Well, I'm so glad you asked. So I've got a whole bunch of necklaces in the works, of course, as always. I'm doing a really fun sticker giveaway on my Patreon. So if you support me on Patreon, I now make really cool vinyl stickers of different illustrations or designs that I do, and I let my patrons help me decide which ones they want to see as stickers, and then I give them away. So if you're one of my patrons right now, you can choose between, I think I've got 6 or 8 different stickers right now that you can pick from, and I just send them to you for free. So now's a really great time to sign up. Patreon.com/surly-amy, and you get a bunch of free stickers from me. Did some really fun ones, some Viva la Resistance ones. Oh, I did a actual physical vinyl sticker of my Donald Trump portrait, which is just his hair and the word sad. And that actually got picked by Redbubble. They were doing a little contest to make digital stickers, because digital sticker packs are really popular right now. You can use them in your messenger apps and stuff like that. And so that design actually got picked to be used by them in their sticker pack. And they paid me a whopping $25 to use the design, which is really sad state. You know, in terms of like how much artists make for stuff that they do. But it's nice to be included, and it's a political design, so I'm happy to see it spread out there. But that design is on their sticker pack. I guess you can get it on iTunes or wherever. Just search for Redbubble stickers. And then you can also get it from me for free if you pledge to my Patreon. So that's cool. What else happened? So last night I was reading Twitter, as I do to get my news. I follow a lot of journalists. And Elizabeth Warren was on the Senate floor to speak out against Jeff Sessions, and she was silenced by Mitch McConnell, who's like the guy in charge of the Senate. He gets to tell people when to be quiet, apparently, and he told her basically to stop talking because she was insulting another senator on the floor. And that's because Jeff Sessions is a senator, and the whole reason they had convened was to discuss the pros and cons of having him be voted in to Attorney General. And so Elizabeth Warren decided she was going to read from a letter that was written in the 80s by Coretta Scott King, who is or was a civil rights activist and was probably best known because she was married to Martin Luther King Jr. But in her own right, she was a really wonderful activist, and she had written a letter in the 1980s about Jeff Sessions, about how he had tried to stop black people from voting. And it was one of his prime objectives at the time was to, impede upon the rights of black America to place their votes. And so Elizabeth Warren read this letter and was not allowed to finish reading it. He stopped her before she even finished and silenced her. And basically, she was not allowed to speak for the rest of the night. It blew my mind, and it happened in the middle of the night, so I was exhausted. I didn't really have time to do anything, but this morning I woke up and I did a really fast portrait of Coretta Scott King, and it has the words, "Nevertheless, she persisted," because basically what Mitch McConnell did was he said he warned Elizabeth Warren, but nevertheless she persisted in trying to read this letter that doesn't even have any bad words in it. It's not offensive. It's just simply a statement from this wonderful woman in the 80s about what a terrible person Sessions is. And so that nevertheless she persisted has become a meme on the internet, and it's become something that we're like sort of rallying behind. So it's a lot like, resist, persist. Us women, you can't stop us. Nevertheless, she persisted. And so I did this, what I think is a really pretty portrait of Coretta Scott King with those words. I posted it up on Redbubble. If you buy it for anything, like the posters, the prints, the t-shirts, the mugs, anything, any money I make from it, I'm donating to the NAACP. So I did that this morning. Like, I busted that out really fast, but
Oh, that's cool.
So I'm not taking any money from it at all. Like, it's not my place to, especially as a white person, to be collecting any money, based on someone as incredible as Coretta Scott King. So it's a really pretty portrait, I think, and I hope you like it too. And again, any money I make off of it, I'm donating to the NAACP. And ultimately, they let the letter be read on the Senate floor, but they let a man read it the next day. So today, which is a few days ago for people listening to the podcast, they let Bernie Sanders read the letter, which is like, what? So they let a white man read the letter, and it just blows my mind. So it makes me really upset. But anyway, if you want to do something positive about it, you can, support the NAACP. You can support the ACLU. You can purchase art from people in the Black community, or you can purchase art that I made, and the money will go back to the NAACP and supporting civil rights. And I did that, and I also drew a really cool design this week that's a boot, and it's about oppression and silence, supporting the oppressor. So that's another thing to think about. I have been nonstop, basically making stuff. So that's all I can think about right now. Those are things I've done in the last, literally the last 24 hours. But I have been making a ton of other stuff throughout the week too.
You've been busy.
And yeah. I have to tell you, I think I said this before, but you are freaking awesome. I love you to death.
I love you too.
You are top 5 inspirational people that I know. And I don't know who 1 through 5 are. Like, I haven't really put that list together in my head. But if I had to put a list together, I'm putting you on there. Because you be doing some work, girl. I swear.
Thank you.
There's not a lot of people out there that go hard like you. I love it. I love it. You and my wife. My wife, she's looking at me like, am I on that list? Yes.
She number one. She number one.
You on that list.
Tell her she's number one.
All right. Goodness gracious, Amy. You go to work. When you go to work, you go to work. I love this. I love the stuff you stand for.
Thanks.
I'll go now.
All right, Bill. Good luck trying to follow that up, brother.
Yeah, I know. Well, here's something for you. I want you to guess how many entries have been submitted in the No Lathe Pen Challenge so far.
35.
41.
55.
Oh.
Do I win?
No.
Because I was closer?
No.
I think I saw you tweet that earlier. You were like, there's been 41 entries.
That's already horribly out of date. We're up to 55 entries
that's
already.
Amazing.
And by the time this episode comes out, that's going to be out of date too. And
how many days would it take to watch the videos all the way through?
It's to the 19th, right?
It's running until the 19th, but right now, if you started watching... Oh, it's not showing me. I don't know why.
It's going to take at least a day.
Yeah, I mean, I could add them up, but I'm not going to do that right now. But okay. Yeah, it's going to take at least
12 hours.
Yeah, it would eat your work day and then some,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's incredible. And we've still got 11 days left. And I know that there are still people who, started working on stuff and haven't submitted it yet because they're still working on the video or what have you. Did you see Jimmy's entry? Did you see it?
No.
I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness. It is so funny. He made this little pen man. He started with just a pen, and then he put feet on it, and then he put hands on it. And the hands are exactly far enough apart that they can hold a Post-it note.
Oh my God. That guy.
And so he made that out of epoxy clay, and then he took that and he made a mold, and then he cast a whole bunch more and put pens in all of them, and then spray painted them different colors. And so he made a whole line of them, and he had them all holding up Post-it notes so that it said Duresta. It was hilarious.
He is such a genius, that guy.
I was about to say.
So good.
But the killer part is, I know that he's not entering because he needs a lathe, because he doesn't. I've been in his shop. He has 5 of them. He puts stuff on top of them. He's got one lathe on top of another lathe because he has nowhere else to put it. But he just wanted to make sure that people saw it. And
Aw.
so what happens is people see that and then they keep coming over. Like the playlist has been viewed something like 6,000 times.
Yeah.
That's great.
Like it's seriously taking off. And they're still, okay, this is going to come out on the 13th. You still have 6 more days, okay? That is more than enough time to make something and shoot a little video about it, okay? The video doesn't even have to be that good. Just please try to put something together. It's a lot of fun. And just some of the creativity coming out of this thing is incredible. It's making me really happy that I decided to do it. And I'm going to have to come up with something better for next year, but I don't know what that's going to be. Let's see.
I'm sure we could think of something.
Yeah.
We'll brainstorm about it after. I have a video for this week. I made a something called a parting tool for the lathe, which is when you're done and you need to actually cut the thing off, you just need a very thin blade that it like carves away the last of the wood, and then you take the piece off and you're done. And I had one, but it was junk. So I took a piece of a saw blade that I've already used to make like 3 knives, and I took a piece of that and I made a handle, and then I put the saw blade in so I made like an entire tool from scratch, like start to finish. Wow. And so that's going to be the video this week. I mean, last week. It comes out on Monday. I'm not good with time, sorry. But anyway, that video is going to go up, and I'm really proud of that one. I think it's going to be a good one. I think people are going to like it.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then
that's
other
the one
than
where
that,
you had it, where you had the other one and you threw it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I'm like, this
fun.
one, no.
Yeah.
Spoilers. All right.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm, actually, I feel like I've done a lot this week, but it's also, I've also just been home a lot because my wife has been sick.
Aww.
So, it's been kind of a slow week, but at the same time, what time I do have, I'm trying to be productive with. So, it's been kind of a weird week, but that's okay. I'm glad I got 2 videos ahead of schedule last time, because now I can actually afford to take some time off, which is nice. It's nice to breathe every now and again. And that's it. That's what I did. So, nowhere near what Amy did, but it's still pretty good.
I don't even remember what I did more than 24 hours ago. I've been like nonstop lately.
Imagine if you did. This whole show would just be you talking about what you did this week.
It'd be
And
the
then,
end
all
of the
right,
show.
that's it. See you next
and then
week.
I fed the squirrels, and then I pet my dog. And it's not all like whirlwind art making here, guys.
Yeah, we
It
just
is.
leave the boring parts out.
Yeah.
So let's see. This week we're talking about something that we brought up at the end of last week's show. Mm-hmm. You might remember at the end of last week's show we were talking about form versus function and how that's an entirely separate debate, and now we're going to have that debate.
All right.
So for those of you following along at home, this is kind of it's been like a philosophical and design sort of debate since forever. But the idea is, there's the form of something, which is how it looks, like the aesthetics of it, and then there's the function of it, which is how it works.
Right.
And so some things are entirely, I don't even want to say that because it's not true. I was going to say some things are entirely form, like art that doesn't do anything is entirely form, and some things are entirely function. But I don't even think that's true. But I'm going to stop talking
It depends
now.
on the context. It is true, but depending upon the context of where the object is placed and what its intended use is for, or if it has a use at all. Because even art itself has a function, and that function is to elicit a response from the viewer. So even something that's based on form has a function, but you could still say the opposite is true as well, I guess.
You just
I'm
threw my
already going to
argument out
confuse
the window.
myself.
No, well, let's hear it anyway.
Let's hear it, yeah.
No, because I was thinking that depending on what it is that you're doing, so obviously art is more, you're going to have a different conversation than something like engineering. And more specifically, things that I've been working on recently, like web design, there's 3 different types of code that you use to develop a website. So if you're just doing form, which is how it would look, you would use HTML and CSS. And then when you start to, but if you were going to have it do things, then you would need a completely different set of code, which would be JavaScript. And all 3 of those things work together, and you can have a completely functional website that's ugly with no CSS styling. But then you can also have a completely beautiful website that does nothing but it's point, and both would effectively be pointless to somebody who is, just using, who would go to the website. So I think it's very important that you have a balance between form and function, and that whatever the end goal is, if that is it for it to be more functional and it doesn't necessarily have to be aesthetically pleasing, then I think that's where you need to go. And then at the same time, if it doesn't have to be functional, but it could just be like a a destination website where you just need people to look at something and go on, then I think the form is important too. So I really have no idea. It's really just a philosophical perspective. It depends on what your goal is and how you plan to achieve it and who it is that is going to be looking at it. And from there, you just go with what you know.
It's funny, when the internet first got popular, there were quite a few websites I remember that popped up. Yes, I'm old. There were quite a few websites that popped up that were primarily, their whole point was just to be an art site, right? Mm-hmm. So you would go to them thinking that they had some sort of specific function, like it was a regular website, but you would just click on things and you would fall down these like rabbit holes that would just pop up a screen that didn't do anything, and you'd have to go back, and there was like invisible links on things. I don't see a lot of websites like that anymore that are, you know, specifically done just to be art projects. But it's interesting that you bring that up, because a website can still be form versus function, or form as function as well.
It's super funny because it's when you start to see how code creates websites, and then you think back to all the different types of websites that you've seen in your past, you're like, wow, there's a lot more going on here than you initially thought. So if you're somebody who made a website using a website builder, and you see how easy it is to drag and drop those, you know, whether it's a widget here, or you're putting a picture here, or you're making it a clickable, and that clickable will have a link, like all these things are super easy. You really don't appreciate, and nor should you have to, if that's your thing, that's your thing, but you really don't appreciate the level of design thought process that has to go into the website, how functional it has to be, you know, how people are developing the code that is easy to consume for people like me to go and make very complex websites. Like, it's a lot of different things, a lot of different layers that you have to consider. And even from a design perspective, just being so forward thinking to say that you need to have something like CSS, which allows you to make your style, make a website, a web page, be stylistic, and make it so that it's very easy to do one page or do one line of code, and it makes that same style happen over and over and over without you having to do a whole lot of different things. I think, you know, just thinking about the function aspect of creating the form in that's dope. And I'm probably talking in circles because you guys are like, oh, what the heck is he talking about? But just it's some high level stuff that I'm learning about that is just blowing my mind every day. And I appreciate those tools a lot more now that I'm seeing how they are actually being put into effect on the back end of a website. Sorry, I just nerded out.
No, that's cool. I think an interesting part of this discussion in terms of being a maker is, what is more important to your product? Is it important that your product that you're making do something, or is it important that your product looks beautiful or appears a certain way? So I think that's something that you would need to ask yourself. Like, Bill, in your case, when you're making something, what do you care about? I mean, do you think that if you're making, I don't know, whatever the most recent thing you've done, a table or a pen or, you know, a picture frame, right? Mm-hmm. What is more important to you when you're thinking about the project? Is it that it's useful, the product is useful in the end, or is it that it's beautiful, or do you try to strike a balance?
Well, I do try to strike a balance, just because, you know, if it's supposed to be a picture frame and it won't hold a picture, then it's not much good as a picture frame. You know, it might be a beautiful piece of wood, but if it can't hold a picture, then that's not going to work. And, you know, I've done that before. Like, I didn't make the recess in the back deep enough so you can't actually get the glass and then the picture and then the back matting in there and then close the whole thing up. But that was, you know, oops, okay, I learned from that. And if I'm making something for the shop, like if I'm making a workbench or something, then I'm all function. You know, I don't care how it looks as long as it works. But most of the time I'm trying to strike a balance, and I find that function is usually the easy part, because I'm not making really complex stuff most of the time, you know, but if I'm making a piece of furniture or something, okay, so, you know, what makes this a table? All right, well, it's got to be roughly this high, and it's got to have a surface to hold stuff and preferably not tip over. Everything after that is form. Everything after that is I can do whatever I want. I can use whatever materials I want. I can make it look however I want. I can shape it however I want. And all that stuff is where form comes into play. I mean, if you want a table, all that you really need is, you know, a
Four
piece.
legs or 3 legs.
Or, like take
a crate. All you need is a crate.
Seriously, just stick a cardboard box in the center of the room and put stuff on top of it. Yeah. If you've got a horizontal surface and you put something on top of it, it is now a table. It's a done.
Very true.
It might be a crappy table, but it's still a table.
Yeah.
And that kind of
goes. If you
goes
put it in a museum, it's a Rauschenberg, and it's worth $1 million.
Is that serious? Are you serious?
Yeah, that's an actual artist. There's an artist. He was very well known for like making constructs of just like found objects. So he would take a crate and he would like glue like a stuffed eagle on it, and he would like paint something on the side and then put a door. And yeah, it was during the pop art movement of the 60s, and it was another one of those. It was sort of dealing, form versus function. It's like he made things that were no longer really useful anymore, but they represented things that were useful to you. And I guess in the context of a museum space, it then became art. So it was a conversation about form versus function.
So it would be more form than if it was something that looked appealing and it caused you to have that critical thought or evoke some type of emotion from you from an artist's perspective, but you couldn't sit on it. He leaned more towards the form aspect of it.
Yeah, as is any chair that you put in a museum, because you're not allowed to sit on them.
Very true.
That's sort of an interesting topic to think about.
Very true.
If anything that is placed in a museum context sort of becomes different and sterile because you, the viewer, are no longer really allowed to interact with it the way it was intended probably originally.
Yeah.
So it's sort of stripping the function from the form just by placing it in a museum.
Well, that's funny. Okay, take a bench, all right, and stick it in a museum, and it's a bench, okay? Now stick it in a museum behind a rope and put a little plaque next to it. Now it's art.
And it's art, yeah. That's exactly it. It's like the Dadaist movement and pop art movement talked a lot about that. I know in my case, when I first started surly-ramics as a business, I know that I was really searching for a way where I could make a living as an artist. And it was a really, really difficult thing to do because breaking into the fine art world is nearly impossible if you're not already famous or very wealthy. So it's a very closed off circuit, and it's very, very difficult to break into. So I had realized that when I was somewhere in my 20s that I was never going to, break into that world, that high art world. So I had to figure out a way to make a living because I had to be a maker. I had to make things. I wasn't going to give up. So I searched for function. Like I searched for a way to convert just the artwork and the drawings and the sketches and the paintings into something that people would have a need for. And that's why I make jewelry, which has a function, and that it's to be worn.
Yeah.
And so I somehow found a way to make my art into a product that people would use or would want for different reasons. And it was really difficult. It took a long time to figure out a way that I felt like I wasn't denigrating the art that I was doing. And I still get a lot of insults like, oh, you're just a crafter. Because I make something that has function, you're just a crafter. And I'm like, no, I don't think I am.
Like function is somehow less than, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's in the art world, that's how it's treated. I
have a question. What was the moment? Because I've never thought about this. I guess because I knew the story of when you were working at the restaurant and you used to wear your necklace. I just assumed that necklaces was the thing that you were always doing. Not always, obviously, but what was the moment or what other things did you try to do as you were exploring what you would do making your art while at the same time being able to make a living? Like, did you make t-shirts first?
Yeah. I did t-shirt designs. I back then, like, there was this big trend where you would take labels and you would change them into something that had to do with pot or drugs or something like that. And so I had this Best Foods Real Mayonnaise thing that I did where it was like Best Moods Real Marijuana. And that was like one of my first t-shirt designs.
I'm sorry, I just thought like I'm suddenly transported back to the 90s.
Yeah, right? And it's hilarious. Yeah, you remember, right? It's hilarious and terrible. But I was poor and I had no way of really printing a lot or making a lot, so I got like a small run of them, and then it got like copied. Like somebody on Melrose, this was when Melrose was like Melrose Place, the TV show was on, and Melrose was like the coolest place that you went to go shopping. And so my design got stolen, and one day I was going to work at Johnny Rockets as a waitress, and I walk up and like I'm walking to work and like every t-shirt shop had my design in it, and there was like nothing I could do. And it was like one of the most depressing moments ever. But I got over it, and I've learned since then to just sort of like take that kind of shit in stride. But so yeah, I started trying to do t-shirts. I tried to do like all kinds of things. I used to paint on people's leather jackets. You could hire me to do logos. I went to school to do graphic design. I did movie posters. I worked for record labels. I did photography. Then, I opened the art gallery, which, because I painted since I was a little kid, I was a painter. Mm-hmm. And that was basically when I very, very first started making surly-ramics was at that point, because I had an art gallery and me and my mom would make the little ceramic pieces and put them in the shop. And that's what I remembered later on after I had gone bankrupt and I started making those again. So it was sort of a natural process. But yeah, what didn't I try? I tried a million things until I found something that clicked with people, in a commerce-friendly way on the internet that I could continue to do that would support me. So it was a battle because I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to make art, right? And am I still making art? I don't know. I think I am.
Well, if you think about it from a philosophical point of view, the form of you being an artist is balanced nicely with the function of you making money. You see that? You see that? You see how I did that? So you're making art and you're expressing yourself, right? So you're being an artist and you're evoking that emotion from people while at the same time you're paying bills.
Yeah.
It's multiple layers to this thing.
And I think an art critic would argue that point, and they would say that what I'm doing is just craft.
Well, but what I'm saying is the art. So the art itself and the emotion, because art is really just about emotion and making people critically think about what you're making, what you're presenting to them, and if they like it, they like it. If they don't, if it speaks to them, it does. If it doesn't, then they just keep walking. So I think, because you guys are, very technical, art critics are very technical. Screw that. I don't care what you guys. If I look at something, I look at because I look at my robots and I believe that they're art. Like I make them stand in different, as I'm sitting back and I just want to sit back and look at how they are, and I need to observe different things. I make them have different postures because I want the postures to look realistic. So I put them in like a seating or a standing or a walking or any type of posture, and I sit and I look and I'm like, wow, this is beautiful. And it makes me think that it's art because there's literally no difference between that and a sculpture to me.
I agree.
Or what is those things called? Installations. You ever seen installation art?
Yes.
Like it's no different to me. It all looks the same.
I've done a bunch.
Jeff, I'm glad you brought the robots up because I've been thinking about this. Because when you set out to design a robot, like you made robots that are analogous to certain animals, right?
Yes.
So when you're setting out, like the purpose of this robot is to look like this animal. Yes. So you're not only are you trying to make a functional robot, but you already have a desired form in mind.
Absolutely. And the function also, like, it's not just any type of function. So there are robots that look like robots because, we just have this general consensus of what a robot looks like as long as it's boxy and electronic. But a lot of times you have people who say spider robots, right? Like the hexapods are usually referred to as like spider robots or crawling robots. And literally there's no animal species in the world that looks like the hexapods. You know what I'm saying? But so for me, the form was important, but the function of it, not just walking like a robot, but walking like the animal that the form was supposed to be. So I didn't want to make a form, but have a function that didn't look like
you don't want to make it look like a dog on the outside and then still have the same 6 little legs going.
Exactly. That make no sense. That would actually contradict the form. And so that's kind of why this thing takes longer than if I was to just focus on function. I can easily make a walking robot.
Because that's the thing. If you wanted to just make a robot that walks, like that'd be easy. You'd be done.
Yeah, I'd be done.
You wanted to walk like this other thing.
Exactly. Move, stand. Like if you were to put it in a position and you were to look at it, if your first thought wasn't, oh, that looks like a dog, then the form was off.
Right.
I missed the mark on the form.
Right.
And that is a struggle that I had a long time ago. Now I could care less. I just am focused now on, just making something and learning from it so that I can share that. But, that it gives me the perspective to kind of think about this in a more critical way versus if I was focused more on just making regular robots not regular, because making robots is not, I make it sound like it's a very easy thing and anybody can just
this is the thing that everybody does all day.
Yeah, but I was trying to make it not look like the norm, and that's really what got me tied up and got me really pushing the envelope, really.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is a lot about design when you think about form versus function, and I think one of the best companies, in my opinion, that mastered a sort of a balance between form and function is Apple. And you can argue all you want about, whether or not PCs are better than Mac products. But one thing that's for sure is that they sort of set the bar with creating a product that perfectly balanced form and function. And it may, as time has gone on, they have sort of lost, I think, that balance because they're a little bit more obsessed with form than they are with function in terms of, stripping things down so that they're so simple that you lose ports and you lose certain aspects of the machine that were important to you as a designer. And they are sort of losing their grasp right now, just a touch.
Yeah.
I hope that they come back. But I think when we're having a discussion about form versus function, you really can't help but think of something as perfect as the iMac and the iPhone and the iPad were when they were first introduced. They sort of set the bar for all other electronics, and their slickness and their accessibility and their intuitiveness, everything that they did in their early stages was absolutely brilliant in terms of a perfect balance between form and function.
Yeah.
And so I think that as artists, designers or creators or whatever, it's something to look to when you're thinking in terms of how can I strike that balance with whatever product that I'm making.
Yeah. Well, something that I think is kind of interesting is you can do this exercise anytime, anywhere, because, okay, the most common example that I can think of there's two. It's buildings and cars, okay? Because anywhere you go, you're going to see cars, you're going to see buildings, okay? Now, cars, essentially, okay, there's a motor or an engine, okay, and there's some wheels. And the rest of it is entirely, like, some cars are built for specific purposes, like trucks are built to haul stuff or whatever, and cars are built to haul people, but they all look different. Why do they all look different? Like, mathematically speaking and engineering, there is a certain form that would be perfect for a car, like for wind resistance, but they don't all do that. It's not every car out in Las Vegas is white, even though that would be the best color for them because it's friggin' hot.
Yeah.
But, not everybody has a white car, and not everybody has a car that is, like, optimally designed. Like, a lot of what happens with cars is form. Mm-hmm. But that form has to take into account the function. But there are also cars where they take the form too far, and then you end up like, okay, this car kind of sucks.
Yeah. Like concept cars. I feel like
concept cars are all form. They don't have to work because they don't move.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but even the ones that, I don't know if you guys ever saw. Oh, you know what? This is going to be my recommendation. But there's a car that was laser cut out of cardboard. It was a Mercedes-Benz, and they laser cut an entire car, and it was like 30,000 sheets of cardboard, and they made a working car, and the car was awesome. And it was I forgot what series it was, but they made a Mercedes-Benz. They even made the Mercedes-Benz logo and put in LEDs, and it was made out of cardboard. It's freaking awesome. But I look at that and I'm like, yeah, I'm not driving in that.
Yeah.
No.
I'm not driving down the street in that. Why would you make that? I get that you made it as either because you had time or just as a concept or just because you could, but that's not safe.
You made it because your engineers and your designers have been working hard all year and you need to give them something to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But and it looked incredible. It looked just like the real Mercedes. And I'm just like, yeah. And they drove it. Like at the end of the video, they drive out the garage. I'm sure they didn't go too far in it. They got a real engine in there, everything.
No, that's exactly how far they went. They drove it out of the garage.
I'm like, yo,
turned off the camera, and then scrapped it, so no one would ever try to drive it again.
And then like a spark from the engine lit the whole thing on fire.
Set the whole thing on fire. Like there's times where form and function are important. There's time where one is more important than the other. And, stuff like that, I just question it. I think making that car was cool, but, I was a waste of time.
So, Jeff,
do
what
that
you're doing
you
right now,
do.
you're speaking, that's a very modernist perspective.
Yeah.
Because modernism, the whole thing was like form follows function. Basically, worry about the function first, and then craft the form around that. So, like, the building should look like what it's supposed to do. The car should look like what it's supposed to be. It should
that
work,
sounds like some high-level
and then
stuff.
worry about the rest of it. But
the
problem
because
is
of your literature background?
No, actually,
no, I'm joking.
Sort of,
I'm joking.
maybe.
I'm joking.
But what happened was that went so far that it became like bland. Like there was this, the international style of architecture. If you look up a few pictures of it, I'll stick a link or something in the show notes. But if you look up a few pictures, you will recognize these buildings, and you've seen them. Even if you haven't seen the specific buildings, you've seen ones that look like them. So the reaction against that is like postmodern architecture, which is the form is whatever they want it to be, and screw the function. Like the form doesn't have to have anything to do with the function. So it'll just be a cool looking building, and half of it won't have any purpose aside from. There you
decorative
go.
features,
Like there's
it'll look like it's melting, or
Yeah.
it'll look like whatever, but you can't really fit anyone into that side of the building.
Right.
The way they
That's
have.
there's a building
that you
here.
say that.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, because I moved out here. When I moved out here in 2013, and I used to, when I was doing my graduate degree, I was going to John Jay College, so I would go from Yonkers all the way downtown, and I would have to drive on the West Side Highway. And for the first 3 years that I was down here, they were constantly building this building. It's right next to, it's like one building over from the towers, not the one that he lives in, but the ones on the West Side Highway. And it's like a triangle, it's like a triangle on its side, so that the 90-degree angle is in the ground, and then you have the smaller acute angles like that. And it's like in New York City, you have to build up. You can't build out. There's no space. But literally, they built a building with like a 30 and 30-degree angle. And it's like, bro, you just gave up so much space. If you would have just built straight up, you would be great. But so it's like, as you get to the tip, there's a 1-bedroom apartment up there. You know what I'm saying? Like, that made no sense to me.
The penthouse is the smallest apartment.
Yeah, but it looks awesome. And I'm sure that the renting the apartments in that building are probably stupid expensive, like out of this world. But it makes no sense. Like,
at that point, it's a statement. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because doing that and showing that you're wasting all of this space is in itself, it's going to make people talk. The same way that the cardboard car is something that's stuck in your head.
Yeah.
Because that form is so out of line with the function that you're just like, wait, what? And then
it's not functional living in. It's not a functional structure in New York City.
Right.
Like, there's going to be a few people living there, but the amount of people that could possibly live there, and it's not even that high.
Yeah.
But
And
that's
there are
that
a lot of
postmodernist stuff that you were talking about. Throw that out the window.
That's a very extreme example, but I mean there are less extreme examples. Like, look at most famous building in New York. What is it? Empire State Building, right?
Probably, yes.
Okay.
That or the Freedom Tower now.
But yeah, the Empire State Building
Enterprise Building.
Yeah. The Empire State Building is it's an Art Deco style, So there are architectural elements on that building that conform to that style, and there are specific elements that you can look for, and they don't directly contribute to the fact that, okay, this is a building, it's got to look like this, it's got to hold this much stuff, even though they did build straight up, Yeah. Even though it was the tallest building there for a while.
Probably a lot of wasted space in there, too.
Yeah, but I mean, they put most of that detail on the outside because they were going for function, and then Art Deco details over the rest of the building. But it's a less extreme example of what you're just talking about, which is, none of that external detail is necessary to make it a building that functions as a building. But they put it on there because it looks good. But then you start taking it even farther, and you get to stuff like the triangle stuck in the ground where they're wasting all their airspace.
What's that hotel in Vegas that's like that too? Is that still there? There's a triangular...
The pyramid?
It's like a pyramid, yeah.
The Luxor, yeah.
The Luxor, yeah.
It's still there.
The hotel rooms in there they're all slanted like that.
Yeah, and small.
Yeah.
Yeah. Think about how much money they can make if they just built up. I'm a simple guy.
Yeah, but people
know?
go to
Yeah,
stay
but
there because they want to stay in the one that looks like a pyramid.
Very
yeah,
true.
exactly.
Very true.
So
I understand.
It's a balance. It's still got to be a balance
Yeah.
between the two.
It's very interesting. I never thought about this stuff before you brought it up, and I'm always on the side of function. Like I care very little about how it looks, other than does it look the way it's supposed to. Like, well, I just hit my mark and I'm done.
There are times when it actually, normally if you're making something for yourself or for a friend of yours or for your family or whatever, it pays to consider the balance. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Especially like as makers, like if I'm making a table, I want the table to look good. And then there are usually additional considerations. Like if they have small children, I don't want any sharp corners on there because, you know, kid's going to knock into stuff because that's what they do. Kids will just find any sharp edge and just run headfirst at it as fast as they can. But there are also times when it pays to go completely off into the form direction, especially if you're trying to get people's attention. Yes. I remember there was someone who, they put a pen, they sell pens, right? And they put a pen on Etsy. And it was like something like $50,000. And why was the pen $50,000? Because that was the maximum price they were allowed to set on Etsy. Because now, when they look for the most expensive pen on Etsy, guess who comes up first?
Oh, yeah, that's so smart. I'm going to go do that right now. Like one of my necklaces.
Try to sell it, right?
But yeah, it's, you know, so you have this, you make this weird thing. You don't expect anyone to buy it. It's not, you're not making it for sale. You're making it as a statement, as a concept. And that, in a way, by not worrying about the function, even though it does function as a pen,
it becomes more about the form.
Yeah.
It becomes art.
It becomes art.
You cross over when you do something like that. That
Ta-da.
just blew my mind.
There you go.
It's true. That's function that became form based upon the context in which it was placed.
Yeah.
Art, everybody. Art.
Let's wrap this thing up. That felt good.
All right. Yeah.
All right, what?
You want to do recommendations? We can do recommendations.
I'll do my recommendation right off the bat because I already recommended it. I want everybody to make sure that they go and read Coretta Scott King's entire 9-page letter, not just the one small section that they tried to read on the Senate floor. It's extremely important at this time, and it's Black History Month, and we should be learning about all these incredible people that history is trying to forget right now. We need to remember them. So we will put a link. There's a great link from NPR that has the entire letter, and we'll put that in our show notes. Just take a few minutes, read her words, think about what she went through and all the things that she did to try to make this land a place for everyone.
All right.
And then make art.
My recommendation is the cardboard bins. Oh, it was a Lexus. I said cardboard. I mean bins. It was a Lexus. Sorry. Sorry. I was fake
Big
news.
difference.
So my recommendation is this laser cut cardboard Lexus that it was full size, and they used 1,700 cardboard sheets. They made the rims out of cardboard. They made the car. They put LED lights. They got a real engine in there, and they drive this thing. It's freaking awesome. It's so sexy.
You know, that actually makes more sense now that you say that it's Lexus, because I feel like
Lexus.
German engineers would throw a tantrum if you tried to make them build a car that didn't work.
That's funny. All right, so yes, it is Lexus. So that is my and the video is about to play. I didn't mean to click on it. So that is my recommendation. Sorry, I didn't do too much thinking about that before.
No, it's cool. It's cool. All right, so my recommendation is, this might be a repeat, and if so, I apologize. But a friend of mine, his name is Tim Sway. Tim made a chessboard using aluminum from an aircraft wing, and then he made all the chess pieces using parts from the airplane engine.
Where did he get an aircraft wing?
Wait,
there was a small airplane, you know, like general aviation, like the kind that people like own and buy and, you know, fly around themselves. And there was one in a junkyard or something. Okay, because it was just thrashed, or there were just the parts of it. I don't even think it was the whole plane. Okay, but he managed to get a bunch of the parts and some of the aluminum, and so he used the aluminum on the chessboard for like what would have been the white squares, and then the rest was wood. And then for the pieces, he welded together these pieces of like airplane engine to make stuff that looked approximately like chess pieces, you know, the way that you are imagining them.
Wow.
And it's a really cool like piece, and I think he actually sold that set to somebody in Australia.
Wow,
Like,
that's
they were
cool.
willing to pay shipping to get that thing sent all the way around the world. Tim's in Connecticut, so they shipped this thing all the way around the world to Australia because it was this art piece, and they just thought it was super cool. I remember I saw that before
That is a beautiful combination of form and function and recycling. Oh my God, I love it.
And
it
could, the aluminum from the wing is in the board, and then the pieces are made for, it's good stuff.
And then it flew all the way to Australia. So great. So great.
I didn't go there, but I like it.
So good.
Yeah, so that's my recommendation for the week. And with that, I think we're done. So let's talk about where everybody can find us.
All right. If you're looking for me, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at more4 with the F being the number 4. And if you're looking for more videos, I've been sharing a whole lot of Black History videos. And so that is what, if you follow me, you might get a little bit more than usual. I usually do it all the time, but now you're going to get a whole lot more. I'm trying to re-educate some people.
So you can find me everywhere on social media as @surly-amy. If that's too hard for you, go to surly-ramics.com. It's a portal to everything that I do.
And you can find me at One Car Workshop on your social media platform of choice. So, that's it for this week. If you're listening to the show on iTunes, please take a moment, leave us a rating, tell us what you think, even if what you think isn't good, or you can just send me an angry email using a fake address. Whatever you want to do, it's cool. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Makers Hustle. If you want to ask a question, give feedback, or suggest a show topic, contact us through social media, or send an email to info@makershustlepodcast.com. Or just think really hard at me, and I'll probably get it. Once again, thank you so much for listening. I'm sorry, I'm a little goofy today. And while this show might be over,
the hustle
never stops. See you next week, everybody.
Bye,
I want a
everyone.
cardboard Lexus now. I'm looking at the video. Good.
I'll take a regular Lexus, and then I'll sell it for supplies. Yes,
I'll
I
take a
would.
scooter at this point.
Yeah, this thing
Now
is
accepting
really good.
skateboards.